and then we might have a look at the new game plus offerings and see what else we've got in store, and go over my thoughts of the game. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. This has been Stellar Blade, and I'll see you in the next final episode. I'll see you then. Gotta be kidding me there. Hello, and welcome back. Let's ride the end of this out together, shall we? Not even fully sure what's happening anymore. We're just kind of button mashing and everyone's dying. Definitely, by the way, makes it evil, this. Like, keep in mind, each one of these is a person with similar abilities to Eve when we started the game. And we're just mowing them down. Right. And there we are. Stellar Blade. Right. Well, okay. Oh, are we doing something? Oh, I was going to say, I was just going to wait till it got to this bit, just in case there were going to be, if it were going to flick back to the combat sequence, or we were suddenly going to be hit with an after credits moment, or something like that. But that looks to be about it then. Right. Well, I have to speak louder than normal to make sure I go over the music here. But, yeah. All in all, I think it's been a very good offering from the game. Very good. It's been, honestly, I've genuinely, thoroughly enjoyed my time with it. The combat, and I've just kind of noted a few thoughts on it all down here, so I'll just go over these while we're going through the end credits. But yeah, the combat overall, I would say, my main issues that I found, because it's not utterly amazing combat. You know, it's great combat, but I've seen better. I would generally say, as far as combat systems that I've seen and played through go, probably like in this genre, like the absolute S tier is probably God of War. You know, your mileage may vary. You know, people sometimes prefer different ones. It can be a bit subjective, but I personally prefer the God of War style of combat. So to that end, generally speaking, I tend to think that the dodging is very ineffective for the most part. It's good when you get it right, but right at the beginning of the game, it's basically right. You need the double dodge. Like, the double dodge feels like that should be the normal one, to be fair. I also dislike, and I mentioned this at one point, you can't actually dodge forwards using a double dodge, right? You can't double dodge forwards, which doesn't seem like, you know, it's like, okay, you shouldn't be able to, fair enough. But the problem that causes is that when you're not locked onto a target, you straight up cannot use the double dodge ability. You can only use it when you're locked onto a target, which when you're being assaulted by multiple enemies, you're probably not going to want to do. Because if you lock on to one single enemy, we found this in the what was it? The mutated corruptor fight was a brilliant example of this, where we had one of those like horse-looking ones, and we had the mutated variant of it, the Corruptor, in Eidos 9 when we're in there. Brilliant example of the problems with the target locking system and how it works with the dodge system. Because you didn't want to lock onto them, because if you lock onto one, the other hits you from behind, so you kind of have to not be locking on. But when you're not locked on, can't double dodge, so then you couldn't get out of the way of the charges as well. A brilliant fight that played to all the weaknesses of the combat system and was very poorly designed in my honest opinion, that one. Probably one of the worst boss fights, well, one of the worst fights in the game. It wasn't particularly difficult or anything, but just for it not really gelling with the game's mechanics at all. That's probably the biggest culprit for that fight. Another issue I've found is the same button is used to use skills as well as block. The amount of times I've come out of using a block and wanted to use a counter, because obviously you do a perfect parry, then you press either square, triangle, or triangle and circle or whatever, and you'll do a counter move coming out of the parry. Right, we've seen me use it. Really cool ability. Rarely managed to land. I probably only landed about 2/3 of the amount of them that I wanted to land, because I would come out of the block and end up using an ability, because I guess I'm probably pushing down on one button as I'm still coming off the other. You don't really notice in the milliseconds that you're doing this. It's more just, reaction than actual thought processing and input. So the issue you have then is obviously if you're coming off one to hit with other, you often end up using skills instead of actually just blocking, or you end up using skills instead of countering after the parry. Yeah. So literally I'll parry an attack, I'm going to go in with counter move, and I end up using a beta skill. It's not great. And then you think, well, could they separate that input out? Yes, they could. You could have L1 as block, and R2 literally isn't used. The R2 button, it's like, well, it's used to interact with things. You can't interact with things in combat, so that solves that problem. You wouldn't end up having an overlapping of mechanics there. Yeah, you wouldn't have those two inputs overlap, because it disables interactions in combat anyway. The other problem then is like, well, okay, but you use it to pick up items as well. You can turn auto pick up on. In fact, I would recommend everyone does, because having to mash the R2 button to pick up items is annoying. I mean, well, you can just hold it, but still. It's a stupid thing. I don't know why they've got pick items up on its own separate button and that. I would generally say that R1 and R2 should be the buttons to use skills. L1 should be exclusively block, so that way you don't accidentally come out of a block into trying to use a counter and end up accidentally using skills. So I'd separate the inputs there. I would also say then, just in general, the combat, if I wanted to make the combat better, so that's just kind of fixing little gripes I have. If I wanted to make the combat significantly better, because as I say, I don't think it's the best melee combat system I've ever seen, I would probably say it needs more weapons. You look at God of War, Devil May Cry, one of the things that they really pride themselves on is this massive variety of weapons, and swapping to the different ones to use the best tool for the job. Just a few thoughts. I would say something like, you could easily have dual blades at some point. You could literally give yourself dual blades. Once you defeat Taki, you could literally get her sword and be like, right, I've got dual blades now. And it could be faster attacks that aren't as powerful. Maybe that could be their thing. Then maybe, your regular sword becomes like a extra long, more powerful sword or something. So your regular attacks are even more powerful, but then you've got your dual blades. I don't think you'd need an entire new skill tree or anything. You'd just need to swap the animations up a bit, because they don't need to do anything special. They don't need their own crazy special moves or anything. I think it's all fine. You'd just have to swap the animations out for using dual blades. it would be a big ask, obviously. Adding a new weapon is always going to be a big ask for a melee system, especially when the animations are high quality. But, you know, I think it would add a bit more variety to it. I would also consider maybe a whip. And the idea of, you know, all these, you know, when you sheath them turn into like hair ornaments. You know, whip could curl around ponytail, couldn't it? And, you know, another blade up there wouldn't hurt. So I think both of those would still work with that system. You know, the whip could be more of a crowd clearing thing where it attacks in wide arcs but's a bit slower, whereas the dual blades would be faster for hitting flurries of attacks on people. And then the regular sword would be a heavy hitting thing that's better at single target damage and breaking through shields and things. I would also suggest that another thing I've noticed is the amount of times you have to like perfect dodge or perfect parry enemy attacks to get the retribution effect to go on them is absolutely ridiculous. I think I barely used that entire system because it required you to perfect dodge or parry like a single enemy something like 4 times usually before they would even be able to be done with retribution, by which time you've normally just killed them outright anyway. So it would take that long to do that there was no point. The only way you could do it is if you were literally waiting for them to attack you and then just parrying and dodging it in the hopes that they eventually just kill themselves in that way. Which is a bit dumb. Like, no, you'd obviously attack back between their attacks, and if you do that you'll just kill them long before they get one over on you. Another thing, just as a thought, I thought maybe if we're talking about, you know, other additions to combat, maybe you could like whip out the gun more often. Like you can do those like purple backstep dodges when like a purple light shines on the enemy and you kind of whip the gun out and shoot away. It's not bad, but I think there could be more opportunities. Like maybe you could, as you attack enemies, build up say like another bar that's like bullet time bar, and when you use your gun and you've got charges on that, it'll be way more powerful and it'll slow time down for a moment as you fire. Something like that, just so that you use the gun a lot more in combat, because at the moment you don't really, and that can be a bit of an issue. Not only that, but as an idea, L2, you've got like different ammo types. Honestly, I would slim the ammo. I'd slim the ammo types down to something like, I don't know, get it down to 4, and then you could just have L2, and then instead of it being R2 on the trigger, or maybe that could be a standard shot, but the actual bullet types should probably be mapped to triangle, square, circle, and X. So, you know, you press L2 and then those, like you're activating an ability for melee, but for ranged, and you could easily fire different ammo types then without having to go into a menu that pulls out combat. It's a bit kind of crap. And I generally think that as well for the potions and the consumables in combat. You shouldn't really be pausing combat to open a menu. It really takes you out of it. There should just be button modifiers like L1 and R1R where you press them down and then you just push the associated button to use whatever skill. You should do the same for the equipment, I think, honestly. Equipment and potions, because otherwise you just end up otherwise you're just going to end up having to open loads of menus. You don't really want to do that in combat. I honestly avoided it because, well, they weren't really that useful and it really broke up the flow. So I wasn't that much of a fan of it. Other than that, I think the combat could probably use a bit more of its own identity. I think it's definitely been better in the boss fights when they throw a bit of cool music in the background and you get and it gets a bit faster paced, that sort of thing. I think they definitely could quicken up the pace of combat, just quicken up your attacks, add some cool music in the background, make it kind of more bit faster paced, more like Devil May Cry type thing, as opposed to at the moment where it's doing this whole, I don't know, it's like kind of trying to be more Dark Souls-esque, I guess. Like, sort of like Sekiro or Dark Souls. It feels a bit sluggish for this type of game. Like, God of War, it wasn't too bad with. God of War's got fairly slow combat, but the thing is, it's, you know, you're playing as this big burly bloke who's just whacking things with this big axe, and, you know, it isn't, you know, it isn't super fast paced, and you're not doing like gymnastics and all this agile stuff. I feel like Stellar Blade should be playing to its strengths by making the combat, you know, so that you're attacking a bit faster, you're doing more cool like gymnastic moves and that. I think it definitely could be a bit more like that. Moving away from the combat, just I will say this much. What was there? Secondary missions. They were alright. They're not bad. I actually like some of the stories behind them, but some of the actors are a bit wooden and character models don't really suit. Like, what's his name? Kamir or something, the barber. It's like, really? He does not look like a barber. They could make him look more barber-esque. Like, okay, he's like a part human, part robot thing. Why not have him have, like, I don't know, additional arms with, like, scissors and, I don't know, hair dryers on or something? Or you could maybe slim him down a bit more, give him a cool hairstyle himself. Something like that. Make him look a bit more stylish. He looks more like a butcher, you know. And there's a bit of that, you know, like Kaya, like, I mean, oh man, the amount of bloody characters in there, like Kaya and Lily, and look like bloody lollies. Mother Sphere as well. It's like, really? I mean, I get it that it's Japanese, but okay. I feel Lily, for example, could be a bit older and look a bit more, you know, have like some engineering get up, and like, how come all the other airborne units are all, you know, they're all looking like Eve, you know, they're all, you know, young women dressed up to nines and all that in diving suit, but then Lily's there, you know, oh yeah, all the engineers are just lollies for whatever reason. Is that, you know, Mother Sphere policy or something? I don't know. It's just odd. I probably shouldn't question it, but there's just a few weird character designs. A couple of them, though, are really good, you know, in secondary character cast. I really like the, that lass you help, who you fix body up to, for her and that. But yeah. But yeah, the secondary missions, the main issue with them, like, the stories aren't bad, but like I say, the line delivery, dialogue and stuff around them could be better. The real issue gameplay-wise is the amount of backtracking. The amount of times I go to an area, I find an area that's obviously a side mission, but I've not been given the side mission at that point, and have to go back to it is infuriating. Absolutely so. And it also, the fast travel system, I feel like I should be able to bring up the map, swap between different zones, with like, I don't know, pressing R2 or L2 or whatever, or something like that. Swap between zones on the, swap between the different maps, and then click and hold down the fast travel button and just go there from anywhere else. I shouldn't have to go from where I am, back to the tetrapod, then to another region, then fast travel to where I want. I feel like I should just be able to open the menu and just go. You know, technical reasons why, there aren't any. It's purely just they couldn't be asked making the UI. Because you can tell, because obviously you can load from one area to the next and it doesn't take long. So why would it take long to load from, say, the Oasis in the Great Desert to the Wastelands and be next to that, I don't know, next to the entrance to that dungeon you go in or something? Why wouldn't I be able to just fast travel, you know? It's just a gripe. But yeah, other things I think were just a bit niggling. The platforming, and sometimes in the combat, sometimes you just press a button and it just, I don't know, it maybe just didn't read the input or something. It can happen in these sorts of games, but the platforming definitely sometimes just failed. the most common thing I found would happen with the combat. Not combat, sorry, the platforming. The most problematic thing I would find with the platforming, the thing that really occurred the most, that you just did not want to happen, but it constantly did, was the double jump just glitching out. Sometimes you would, and they often say, you'll often hear this, like old platforming games, they would make it so the actual platform you land on, and when you get on a platform, they make the actual model for it, the collision mesh, slightly larger than the platform, because when you're moving in 3D space, it's hard to judge the distance to things, especially when it's something that's in front of you that your character model's legs are obfuscating. So it's oftentimes that you'll press the jump button, but you'll have already slightly run off the platform and your character will just fall to their death, right? Happens a lot in platformers, so they made the platform slightly larger, right? It's not as big of a deal these days since collision detection's got a lot better in games, but I definitely noticed that there was that issue happening here, because you would oftentimes go and jump, you'd run to the end of a platform, you'd jump, and my character would just flop forwards, and you recognise the animation, it's like, oh, she's doing the double jump animation when I press jump once, and it's what's happened is, she's fallen off the platform by like a millimetre, and she just flops forwards when you press jump, because it thinks that you're doing a double jump, because you're in mid-air, even though it's like we're talking a millimetre wrong. The amount of times I had that happen is it's so there's some little teething issues with the platforming. I went about the barb as well, and I thought it looked like a butcher, but also just another quality of life thing. We'll be able to just do your hair up at the camps. It's like, okay, even if it's just the supply camps or something. In fact, I'd just make it so you can do it on the go. I'd say once you've unlocked it, just do it. Because it's like, well, I mean, it doesn't make, realistic sense that, you'd have to go to the barber, right, to have your hair done. Well, yeah, but theoretically, I'd also have to be carrying a wardrobe around on my back to be able to keep swapping clothes like I do. Yet we don't make it so that I can't swap outfits constantly. I feel like it's just something that should just be done, just as a quality of life thing. I think the story, as we got toward the end there, it's a good story. It's interesting, this idea that all the robots defeated the humans and all this. Some of it will getting a bit hard to follow. Like I'm at this point, I'm like, didn't the humans create the colony and escape to it, and that's where the last of them are? And it's like, nope. I think it's the androids who, like, the fact that they keep saying humans, but also sometimes they mean androids. You have to kind of think about it twice as to which ones they mean. So I think I get roughly what happened. The humans were going extinct because Mother Sphere declared war on them. They created Naytibas. Naytibas took over. The last of the androids, when it says the last humans went to the colony, they mean androids because they're calling themselves human now. The colony disaster, I think, is when the Alpha Naytiban that got to the colony infected a bunch of it. They had to dump the outer rings because they were crawling with Naytibas. So I think that's what's happened with that. Then obviously they're trying to retake Earth, so they're just building ships and fleets. I don't know where they're getting the bloody resources from. But they're just building fleets to retake Earth and sending more and more androids to try and do that. Here we go, after credit moment. We're just going to find her on top of the pile of... Yep, we are! So can we actually fly with just the one wing? Because it wouldn't strike me as being particularly aerodynamic, but... The journey continues on. Oh, we're expecting it to continues on. Stellar Blade 2 confirmed or something. No, just their journey continues on. Right, okay. There we go then. Do I have to press X here? Maybe? Oh, well, there we go. But yeah, I think the story's been pretty good. Like I said, the concept behind it all is quite interesting. To my understanding, now I've not played Nier Automata, but I'm told that it is very similar to it. So it's nothing crazy new. And there we go, hard mode unlocked. New game to receive a Raven outfit. Oh, yeah, so we're getting everything available in New Game Plus. Lovely. Right. But yeah, it strikes me as... Yeah, from what I'm able to tell, it's a good idea, but it seems like it's been done not just by Nier Automata, which this game is apparently really trying to emulate. Like, supposedly the director behind this is like a known fanboy for Nier Automata, essentially. So I think, you know, it probably wants to try and find its own identity a bit more with that, with the story and that. So they could probably take it maybe an interesting direction from here. We'll have to see. In addition, yeah, like I was saying, the but I think what it needs, like I say, it's just, I wouldn't say it's like got a crazy good story. It's got a good story for the game, but you know, I wouldn't say that it's its strong point and it's going to sell millions of copies purely because of the story. Absolutely not, no. So they're going to have to do a bit better if they're wanting the story to be the main selling point going forward. I guess it's not a massive problem. Plenty of games have kind of like mediocre stories but amazing gameplay. And I would say that this is an above average story. It's pretty decent, you know, it's... It kind of goes a bit funny toward the end, like, why did Raven do all that? No, she just kind of went a bit nuts. Jealousy, I guess? I don't know. Yeah, why was Adam all just weird at the end, and why has he gone and waged war against the humans? You know, could he have not done all this with Raven? Like, why did we need to get involved? It's like, well, you see, Raven isn't called Eve, and it wouldn't be as biblical or something. God knows. Right. Anyway. And then ending where Mother's Sphere is like, well, to make sure that you're the future, I'm going to have to see for myself and test you. I will send waves and waves of androids until you've made them all extinct personally by your hand just to prove that you're stronger or something. What? So it goes a bit wappy at the end. I think a lot of the character motivations are a bit all over the place, particularly for the antagonists. You know, they're not really... Yeah, they're a bit all over. Other than that, yeah, I think that's more or less everything. I would say the difficulty. Funnily enough, I jotted this down before we got to the last set of this boss rush at the end. I think that overall the game's a bit too easy. It's really easy, right until you get to the end, and then the difficulty ramps up like 2 notches at once. It gets really solidly difficult. I would say that, honestly, the amount of difficulty I was having with some of the bosses then reminds me of when I was beating God of War on Give Me God of War difficulty. It's that difficult right at the end. And that's the normal difficulty. That's the problem. It's like, yeah. So right at the end, it should not be that hard. That is way too hard. I'm genuinely surprised that hard mode isn't available until you've beaten the game. But after seeing the end bit, I think what would have probably happened if I'd have gone on hard mode is I'd have probably been able to beat the game right up until we got to the, right up until we got to Raven. I think then we would have probably had to lower it. Because yeah, that was absolutely ridiculous. So a bit all over there with difficulty. From what I've heard though, New Game Plus, I mean it were telling us there's a load of upgraded stuff. You can apparently get variants of all the outfits in different colours and things. It seems like they've put some genuine effort into the New Game Plus, and that the end cutscenes and that are quite different, so it's nice to see a game that actually puts effort into that system. Supposedly as well, you can just get way more powerful, almost infinitely so, to the point where you just obliterate everything, which I'm really going to enjoy, because I'm probably going to go for the Platinum trophy, which means I'm going to have to get all 3 endings, so I'm going to have to play through it a bit more, probably speedrun it rather than actually go for everything. But it does mean I'm going to have to pummel Raven's face in, and I very much look forward to doing that when I've got absolutely everything maxed out and gone above max, and you know, my sword literally severs. You can just split planets in half. I very much look forward to eventually like 2-tapping her. Just run in like, haha, bang, bang, gone. Or something daft. Oh, if you can get to that point, I would genuinely giggle with glee. That'd be brilliant. Because I think that's the thing, you always think like a New Game Plus, it's more like a victory lap, really, to just go and get all the bits you missed. So I don't think they should really... I mean, it's nice there's a hard mode, because if you get way more powerful, you probably want the enemies to not be the same old crap that you've been facing up to that point, but... yeah. But good job there. And the last thing I can really say, a bit of, you know, not quite the elephant in the room, it's not quite an elephant, I guess it's more like, I don't know, like a particularly fat bear or something, but... made them just put a massive lens flare there on the PlayStation version. I played PC, so ha. But honestly, it was a blink and you miss it moment. But with this, it's like, yeah, the outfits are already scandalous enough. I don't see why they needed to ever so slightly, in very minor ways, censor them even more. Like, it's like, look, putting a bra over her while she's wearing the fucking bondage outfit doesn't really make a difference, Sony. When there's an outfit that literally allows you to wear lingerie while doing like cartwheel kicks, I don't think, you know, a bit of extra padding is going to exactly, you know, I don't think that's quite going to do the trick there. It seems unnecessary and needless. Just a stupid thing. I have no idea why they've done it. Assuming that that's what it's all been about, I genuinely don't know why they've bothered doing that. It seems a stupid, petty thing to me. And I can understand why people are annoyed, because it's like, right, it marketed itself as being uncensored, and it's going to be brilliant and amazing, and I mean, it's filled with violence and gore, literally, like, you're severing people's limbs off multiple times, you know? You see the meat underneath. It's like, yeah, that's fine. Okay, right. But that maid outfit, now that's just smut. And I will say, it's one of them. It's when it comes to these sort of things, you can either decide that your game is going to be sexy, or you're going to be prudish about it and it's not going to be, and all this stuff. And, you know, you kind of have to take a hard stance on that. You either can be or you can't, and... you know, it's not really a meet you in the middle choice. But yeah, genuinely, I think that all the outfits, the hair, the customization, honestly, there's more customization in this than a lot of RPG games these days, which is a shocking, quite frankly, shocking revelation that you kind of have about WoW. Character creators in games have not been coming on as far as they ought to have. But Jesus Christ, play anything that comes from like Korea, and you can tell where the real the real people who are dedicated to good-looking game characters reside. Like that, Korea and Japan a bit as well. Definitely like their character creators and are trying to make really cool ones. And honestly, one of the most underrated features in a lot of games, a really good character creator, is really fun. Dragon's Dogma had one recently. I must have spent like I mean, I think there's a video of me putting the characters together for my campaign, and it took me like an hour and a half. I do love just spending hours in a character creator to just like get a perfect character. Well, maybe not perfect, but you know, perfect to me. And yeah, I think generally speaking, just on the note of like characters and customization in games, yeah, there needs to be more good-looking characters, character creation, and those sort of things. And the amount of stuff people going on about, we're like, oh, the character looks good, and there's jiggle physics, and you know, you can see her ass. Oh my god. Which, and I will not apologise for the fact that we've had two numerous times during this campaign that we've been playing. Like, I have just needed to look up to see if there's any items around, and unfortunately the only way to do that while you use your scan to see through walls and that to check for things is, well, you have to ram the camera upwards, and we've had some questionable camera angles. But again, it's like, well, I mean, you know, are you playing a game with a sex character or not? You know, it is what it is. But you know, it's the people that say all this are the people that don't play these games, I think, typically, and we shouldn't really care about their opinions. The fact of the matter is it's, do you want to play as a character that looks really cool or not? Does it add something to the game that you've got this really cool character doing all these stylish gymnastic moves? Yeah, it does. You know, the physics, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, it's like, yeah, the physics matter. You know, not just for the boobs, not just the jiggling, it's like the hair, the fluttering of like, a lot of the outfits have like little bits trailing behind them, like ribbons or straps and things. And just them moving, her hair moving, the actual like weight of it, it kind of creates a feeling of weight to the body. And it really adds to the combat, you know, it looks like she's moving in the direction that she's swinging, you know, and it matches the flow of the combat. It looks really cool, right? It doesn't sound like much, but you add it to like the hair, the little ribbons and tassels on her outfits, you know, the jiggle physics, it's all moving. The combat then looks really animated and stylish as a result, and because of excellent mocap and stuff. You know, you can either have this stuff or not, you know. And if you're gonna have it, I would say, yeah, you're gonna, like, don't just stop midway through and be like, well, do we really need the, you know, do we need the outfits to be, you know, I mean. But it's one of those things. If you're going for a realistic game that's gonna be really, you know, grisly, realistic, something like The Last of Us, then it doesn't make sense to do this. But if you're going for a crazy, stylistic game where it's all about, you know, good-looking characters and finesse and just blasting, you know, ripping open enemies and cool, like, backflip cartwheel kicks while you slice things apart, you know, form matters, and anyway, I'll leave it at that. I think that's plenty. God, I've been yapping for a good amount of time there. I'm probably going to go and enjoy myself on the New Game Plus. Thank you very much for watching if you've somehow made it this far. But I think that's everything that I can say on Stellar Blade. If I were to put a number on it, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. And again, I've kind of explained why, but just to sum it all up, yeah. Just quality of life, things around like the hair, the fast travel, the secondary missions could just be a bit better, acting and dialogue and things a bit wooden, the writing isn't exactly top notch, but for what it is, there's a lot of things in there that aren't bad. And when you get a game that kind of just hits all the notes, not brilliantly, but it's, you know, it's doing enough to get by on, you know, I'd usually say that it's about a 7, but obviously this has got absolutely excellent combat, an amazing looking character, it's really got style to it. I think there's issues that, like, wrinkles that could even out. But I think between the combat and the look of, you know, and the style and suits and that, you know, the outfits and things, those kind of drag it up to an 8. Just that, you know. But yeah, I think that's a fair enough assessment of it. Me personally, I'm particularly into spectacle fighters. Bit of a guilty pleasure. I really like Devil May Cry. Really like stuff like God of War. And I would probably compare this most. I think it would definitely be easiest to compare this with something like Devil May Cry, but with more like with combat that's more similar with Dark Souls. It's like a meshing of the two, you know. So there's that. But yeah, I think overall, if they made some improvements to the combat system, which is already really good, but I think with a bit of spit and polish, it could go from good to absolutely excellent. And well, not even good to excellent. It could go from like great to utterly amazing and top notch, and could really carry the game without necessarily having to really scrub up the writing. But I think and a lot of the quality of life stuff would be quite nice, obviously. But yeah, that's my general assessment of it. I've really enjoyed my time with it. I've probably spent somewhere between 40 to 50 hours. I'm not usually inclined to actually get all the collectibles in these games. I generally speaking tend to hate collectathons because I think that they're a waste of time, and collectibles and secondary stuff really shouldn't be the side content of the game. And it feels like it is a bit with a lot of these collectathons where it's like, yeah, the side missions are shite or non-existent, and a lot of the secondary activities are just going around and collecting like knickknacks. I hate those. A really nasty culprit for that was Hogwarts Legacy the other year, where yeah, there's the main story, but then it just wants you to go around collecting knickknacks for so long. It's absolutely ridiculous. I've no idea why they did that. Utterly absurd. But yeah, it felt very much like a Harry Potter theme park, where you went through a cool little story for a bit, and then like 80% of the game was go and do all this side stuff to, I don't know, get your level up or something. You know, got to find all the hats and things. I genuinely hate stuff like that. But this I actually felt a bit motivated to get it, because there were some cool rewards that I actually gave a toss about. Different outfits, upgrades, and things like that. Additional side bosses that were hidden behind secondary missions, that sort of thing. And the fishing minigame wasn't awful. But it involved way more fast travel than I would have hoped. At the very least, I could have put a bloody fast travel camp on the fishing spots, and they didn't. Not all of them, which again goes back into that quality of life gripe that I have around fast travel. But thank you very much for watching. If again you got this far, if you played the game yourself, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I probably am going to go for platinum and speedrun New Game Plus a few times, see if I can get to the end, get the different endings. First time I'll have platinumed a game in probably like a decade or more. I think last one I got like Battlefield 3 or 4 or something. So anyway, more to come on the channel, and I hope to see you then. Right, thank you very much, and goodbye.